never forget something a mom said in my office, and she looked at her husband and quietly said, "It's not the cleats." And then she started crying. And for a moment, nobody spoke. Her husband looked completely confused. And honestly, I think they thought they were talking about soccer cleats, and they weren't. Not really. This couple had come to see me because they had been arguing more since school started. They loved each other. They were wonderful parents. Neither one of them wanted to be fighting. But somehow every conversation seemed to end with both of them feeling frustrated and misunderstood. And the cleats were just the latest disagreement. And the husband looked at me and said, "I told her I'd buy them. I don't understand why she's still upset." And so I turned to her and I said, "Tell me what you mean when you say it's not the cleats." And she took a deep breath. And then she said something I've never forgotten. "By the time I asked you to buy the cleats, I'd already noticed they didn't fit. I remembered he had practice coming up. I checked the calendar to see when we could get to the store. I looked at our schedules to figure out who could take him. I thought about how much they were going to cost. I wondered if he had time to break them in before the game. And by the time I asked you to buy the cleats, I'd already carried the whole thing." And then she looked at him and quietly said, "I don't need you to help me after I've already carried it. I need you to help me carry it from the beginning." I'll never forget looking over at her husband, and he wasn't defensive, and he wasn't angry, and honestly, he looked a little heartbroken. And he quietly said, "I had no idea that's what you were carrying. I thought when you asked me to buy the cleats, that's what you needed. And you know what?" I believed him. Hi, I'm Katherine O'Brien. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, founder of Happy with Baby, and a youth soccer coach, which means I've seen enough forgotten cleats, missing shin guards, mystery water bottles, and parents making last-minute U-turns because the cleats are still sitting in the garage to know that family life is beautifully messy. And if you've ever gotten all the way to the soccer field only to discover the cleats are still in the garage, you're in good company. And just for the record, I've been that parent too. A time or two anyways. And I think that's why this story has stayed with me all these years, because every August when parents start talking about school schedules, sports, lunches, backpacks, and trying to keep everyone afloat, I think about that couple, because it really wasn't about soccer and it wasn't about the cleats. It was about something so many couples experience, but often struggle to put into words. And I've thought about that session so many times over the years because I don't think they were describing the same experience. She was describing what it felt like to always be thinking 10 steps ahead, and he was describing what it felt like to respond whenever she asked for help. And neither one of them was wrong. Neither one of them was trying to hurt the other person. They were simply living in two very different experiences in the same family. And every August, I start hearing different versions of this exact conversation. The names change, the stories change, and sometimes it's picture day, sometimes it's a forgotten permission slip, and sometimes it's realizing your child has suddenly outgrown last year's shoes 2 days before school starts, right? Sometimes it's trying to remember which child has soccer on Monday, piano on Tuesday, orthodontist appointments on Thursday. The details are different, but underneath almost every one of those conversations is the same question. Do you see everything I'm carrying that you never even have to think about? And one of the things I've learned after more than 20 years sitting with couples is this. People are usually much kinder than the conversations they're having. Think about that. When couples come to my office, they often sound frustrated. Sometimes they sound critical. Sometimes they interrupt each other. Sometimes they're exhausted. But if they stay with the conversation long enough, if we slow it down, and if we get underneath the argument, what I usually find isn't two people trying to win. I find two people desperately wanting to be understood. And that's exactly what happened with this couple. She wasn't asking him to buy shoes. She was asking him to understand what it felt like to carry the responsibility of remembering everything. And he wasn't refusing to help. He genuinely thought he was helping. And they weren't having the same conversation. She was talking about carrying responsibility, and he was talking about completing tasks. Those are two very different things. And I think this is where so many couples end up getting stuck. One person is thinking, I'm carrying this family, and the other person is thinking, I'm doing everything you asked me to do. Can you see why neither one of them feels heard? They're answering completely different questions. One is talking about the invisible work that happens before the task, and the other is talking about the task itself. And that's where I want to pause for a moment, because we finally have a name for this. It's something researchers often call the mental load or the cognitive load. It's all the thinking that happens before anyone else even realizes there's anything to do. And what's fascinating is that this work often goes completely unnoticed. Why? Because when it's done well, nothing goes wrong. Nobody notices you remembered picture day. Nobody notices the permission slip was signed before it was due. Nobody notices that someone registered your child for soccer before the team filled up. Nobody noticed that you remembered grandma's birthday. People only notice when something's forgotten. And that's what makes the mental load so lonely. Because sometimes the hardest work you do is the work that no one even notices. The interesting thing is, this isn't just something I see in my therapy office. I've lived pieces of it myself. As a mom, there have been seasons where I felt like I was carrying a running list in my head every waking minute. Has everyone had breakfast? Did someone sign the field trip form? Who's driving who to practice? When is the doctor's appointment? Did we RSVP? Who needs new shoes? Do we have enough groceries? When are we going to fit laundry into all of this? And here's what's fascinating. Most of those thoughts never leave your head. Nobody hears them. Nobody applauds them. Nobody even knows they're happening. They're just there, running quietly in the background all day long. Kind of like having 50 browser tabs open that never quite close. Sometimes one closes, then 5 more open. And after a while, you don't even realize how mentally tired you are because you've gotten so used to carrying it. And as a soccer coach, I see another side of it every fall. Parents pull in the parking lot just as practice is starting. And from the outside, it can look like they barely made it. But I've learned that we rarely know what happened before they got there. Maybe they were looking for that missing shin guard. Maybe one child couldn't find their homework. Maybe someone spilled breakfast all over the shirt 5 minutes before they were supposed to leave. Maybe they were answering one last work email while packing snacks and trying to remember whose turn it was to bring orange slices. And by the time they step onto the field, some parents have already been solving problems for hours. So it's a good reminder that we almost never see everything somebody has been carrying before they arrive. And one of the things relationship researchers have helped us understand is that there are actually different kinds of work that keeps a family running. There's the work we all see, the making the dinner, driving to practice, doing laundry, helping with homework, things that are visible. Then there's other kind of work. It's the remembering, the planning, the anticipating, and keeping track of what hasn't happened yet. Sociologist Alison Daminger describes this as invisible cognitive labor of family life. It's a work of noticing, anticipating, deciding, and monitoring everything that keeps a household moving. And because so much of it happens silently, it often is completely unnoticed. And that's why someone can honestly say, but I do so much around here. And someone else can honestly say, I still feel completely alone. And these two statements can both be true because they're talking about different kinds of work. And I think this is also why these conversations become so emotional. People assume they're arguing about soccer or lunches or who's picking up the kids or the permission slips. And they're not. They're talking about something much deeper. They're talking about whether they feel alone, whether someone notices what they're carrying, whether someone is walking beside them, or waiting to be assigned a task. Those are very different experiences. One of my favorite researchers is Dr. John Gottman. He has spent decades studying couples who stay happily together. And one of the strongest predictors isn't that they never disagree, is that they feel understood. Think about that. Not perfect, not always organized, not never forgetting the cleats. Understood. When people feel understood, their nervous systems settle. They stop preparing for a fight. They also stop trying to prove their point. And they begin feeling like they're on the same team again. And one of the things I think about a lot is the nervous system. When we feel alone in carrying something, our nervous system naturally shifts into protection. We become more reactive, more critical, more defensive. And not because we're bad partners, but because our brain starts asking, am I doing this by myself? And when someone truly sees what we've been carrying, it's amazing how quickly the nervous system begins to settle. And that's why feeling understood changes so much. Everything starts to soften. And that's why I don't actually think the goal is to divide everything 50-50. Families don't work that way. Some week, one person carries more. Some weeks, the other person does. Life changes, jobs change, kids get sick, parents need help. The goal isn't keeping score. The goal is making sure neither person feels like they're carrying the responsibility alone. Those are two very different goals. And I think about that couple often because something shifted in that room after she explained what she meant. Her husband didn't immediately start making a list of chores. He didn't defend himself. He didn't explain everything he'd already did. Instead, he got curious. He asked, so what part happens before you ever ask me? And I still remember her face. And she smiled, not because everything was suddenly fixed, But because for the first time she felt understood, sometimes that's where the healing begins. Not when everything changes overnight, but when someone finally says, I see what you've been carrying. And from that day on, I thought differently about helping, because helping is important, but helping usually starts after somebody has already noticed the problem. Sharing responsibility starts much earlier. It starts by noticing, by anticipating, by wondering what needs attention before someone has to ask. And that's a completely different mindset. And honestly, that's where partnership lives. Helping isn't the same as sharing responsibility. So if you're watching this today, I don't want you to start thinking, okay, what chores should we divide differently? Instead, I encourage you to ask each other one simple question. What's something you've been carrying lately that I didn't even realize? And then don't interrupt. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain. Just listen. Because I have a feeling the answer won't be about cleats or lunches or soccer practice. It will be about wanting to know, do you see me? And I'll leave you with this. The couple I told you about, they didn't stop forgetting things. Their kids still outgrew shoes, permission slips still got misplaced, and life stayed wonderfully imperfect. But their conversations changed because they stopped arguing about the task and started talking about their experiences. And once they understood that, the cleats stopped being the problem. So if this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What is your version of the cleats? What's the invisible responsibility that people around you are not even realizing you've been carrying? And if you're the partner listening today, maybe ask that question tonight. You might be surprised of the answer. I'm Catherine O'Brien, licensed marriage and family therapist, founder of Happy with Baby, and I help parents and couples reconnect during mid-seasons that ask the most of them. And if you'd like more conversations like this, I'd love for you to subscribe. And remember, it was never really about the cleats.